Hello everybody, welcome back to another Dead by Daylight video today. In today's video I wanted to discuss the overarching concept of killers in Dead by Daylight. And I wanted to beg the question and ask, is there too many chapters in Dead by Daylight? Is there way too many chapters, way too many killers, survivors, content, etc.? And at what point is it enough for the developers to finally try to shift their focus on different style of content for the game, outside of the same type of structured content that we get every few months? Going through the list of killers in the game, we have like 33 killers right now, and we have about Chucky coming over, so it's be 34 killers in the entire game. And every time I see a new chapter release, I just keep thinking to myself, like, how many more can Behavior possibly release that's going to keep people excited and keep people, coming back to the game and adding more replayability? It's been no secret that over the course of the last few years, Dead by Daylight's player base has stagnated a little bit, if not have decreased a bit too. So it's no denying that, like, Behavior is basically at a weird point with the game where they're just trying to keep current player retention and try to get a bit more money out of the people here possible. It's not to say that I think that the game's going to die by any means within the next few years or anything. It's just that the hype surrounding this game, I think, can only get so much more. And I think there's only so much more that Behavior could do to really grow this game's player base. Because I feel like, this is over 7 years now that Behavior has pretty much had this game in development and as a live service. I just feel like any possible person who's going to know about the game and play the game is pretty much already found out about the game and played it if they were going to continuously play it at all. Which makes me just kind of think about the overall content model that Behavior is employing to this game and what their plans are going to be for the future. As a player who plays this game, it's pretty hard and a little bit obnoxious to try to keep up with other new content that releases, and I understand a lot of people are just going to say not to buy the brand new chapters and just kind of like take a break from the game and everything, which I have pretty much done for a while. That's why, like, sometimes my uploads are not the most consistent with Dead by Daylight. It's not just because I work and everything else and I don't really have time, because that is true. It's like 3/4 of the reason, but the last fourth of the reason is going to be I just feel like I'm just burnt out with a lot of the grind that this game is demanding of me when it comes to all the new content it wants to release. And as a player, how difficult it is to try to go through and properly learn and master either playing certain killers or playing against certain killers, whether or not you play a survivor or killer role. So overall, like, what is my opinions about this whole thing? I personally think that Dead by Daylight has a little bit too many chapters in the game, and I feel like that they need to find brand new ways to keep people back involved with the game and try to get people to find more ways to be able to play Dead by Daylight. A good example is Dead by Daylight Mobile. They have not only a 2v8 versus mode, but they're also about to introduce prop hunts into the game. Now, these are example game modes that the PC platform, the console platform could really benefit from if Behavior would actually try more to try to make the their main version of the game be a bit more accessible and have a bit more modes to interact with the content and mechanics of the game. But instead of that, they just kind of focus on the same game mode of generators and the same game mode of hooking survivors and stuff, which is nothing wrong. But when you have like your mobile version introducing all these brand new game modes and new ways to interact and have fun with your game, it just begs the question, why haven't done that with a PC version? Instead, that they just opted for the same structured 3-month chapters every few months. I just think, again, that there's way too many chapters in the game, and I think the game could really benefit from more refreshing content to get people to want to play their game more versus trying to drop an $8 to $12 chapter every few months. Because, although it's cool to do every once in a while, I think it's just this content structure is just kind of getting old. Just talk about a player experience. How many times do you even see most of the roster when you're playing Dead by Daylight? When I'm playing Survivor, you kind of feel like you're playing the same handful of killers because there's a certain niche set of characters in the game that I think people really cling on to and view to be worthwhile and fun to play. And then you got like an entire roster of characters that, although they were praised and they were complimented when they released, nobody seems to really play these characters anymore. It's like once in a blue moon type of thing, which really doesn't help Dead by Daylight's gameplay from getting stale, when not only is the core mechanics of the game and game mode getting stale to an extent, but beyond that, so many people are playing so many of the same killers that although they have a massive roster, you just don't really get all of them represented enough, in my opinion. Which again draws back to my overall point, my overall opinion that, like, I just think there's way too many killers in Dead by Daylight. I really wish that Behavior would try something different from just releasing structured chapters. It's not to say that they could ever do it again, but I would be in favor of, like, once every 6 months, for example, to have a really nice, cool chapter be added to the game. And then beyond that, I would rather Behavior to really focus on adding better content to the RIP passes, adding better content to the game modes, or with more game modes into the game, that stuff that feels a bit more refreshing, trying to make the game and finding new ways to interact with mechanics of the game feel more entertaining and interesting versus the same kind of thing that we've been doing for the longest time. You can only think and come up with so many perks, you can only think up and come up with so many powers that exist within the realm of this game's mechanics and the code, and I just think it gets really complicated and really difficult for the developers to even consistently put out things that aren't good enough every few months. So they're in this never-ending cycle of like one good chapter every few 20 releases, and even a good chapter they might release that just dies off within a number of months. The game goes back to the same. And this is where I also come in to criticize some of the Dead by Daylight's events, where a lot of the times events are all structured basically the same way, and the developers don't really introduce anything interesting to interact with the game. So I'm pretty much saying, yeah, the game is kind of getting boring to an extent. Like, as much as I love this game, I have like over 3,300 hours or something in the game, and I've just, over the past 7 years, I've loved this game to death and everything, and I wish I could find more ways to want to come back and play the game. But there's just so many chapters, there's so much recycled content, that whenever I come back into this game, I just don't really find a good reason to continue playing it at times. The Rift Pass is another good example of something that was disappointing to me since they introduced the Rift Pass. I remember a long time the Behavior put out a survey that was asking people what they would be interested in seeing introduced into these Rift Passes, and these things were like custom loading screens, custom lore animations, custom everything. Like, everything was pretty cool and customized, and it actually would affect a substantial portion of your experience with the game to keep the visuals, aesthetic, and animations and mechanics fun and entertaining. But then as the course of the years have gone by, what has Dead by Daylight really have done for the Rift Passes? Most of the Rift Passes is just recycled skins with a slight change of color, and charms, which I think is the worst cosmetics ever. I think charms is probably the worst idea conceptually for a cosmetic in Dead by Daylight, because all the charms are something you can barely see. They're so tiny and small. Nobody ever really pays attention to them, and they're all just the same variations, copied and pasted a lot of the time from different rifts. And let's be honest, nobody's going through their hundreds and hundreds of charms. They try to make sure that they use all of their favorite ones. Usually people are just going to use the ones that are the most noticeable and animated. All the other charms in the game is just pointless. I think charms are just some of the worst cosmetics that the Behavior's introduced. And then beyond that, you got like maybe 1, 2, or 3 full cosmetic outfits within a rift, in which they separate by pieces so that it makes you feel like you're unlocking more cosmetics than you probably are. When you're just unlocking like 2 or 3 sets, and maybe one of them or 2 of them are color variations of previous things that have existed before. I mean, not to get into a whole other rant or tangent, but again, like, when we talk about the content of Dead by Daylight, or whether or not it could be a lot better, I just feel like they gotta change something up eventually, because yeah, Chucky's exciting, and the more they get licensed chapters added to the game, it's going to always be exciting. But we're at the point where we are over 30 some killers into the game. We have like over 30 some, probably up to closer to 40 survivors in the game. We have literally like hundreds of perks in the game, and constantly the meta's always changing and things are always being fluctuated. That the game is just constantly just getting balanced, and things are constantly just being put out over and over and over again, and things are just dying off content-wise and popularity, and I just kind of am tired of the same content structure. It's not really changing enough the gameplay for me. And for me, I find myself always resorting to the same comfort killers I've always enjoyed since the inception of this game. Obviously, with my channel branding, the Wraith being the most noticeable fun one for me. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, that's just my opinion. You know, I'm curious as to what other people think, so please leave in the comment section down below what your opinions are in terms of the content structure of the game. Is there too many killers, too many survivors? What do you want to see more from Behavior? Again, for me, too many killers. I think there's too many chapters going on. I think it's getting really exhausting. I think a lot of people are tired of grinding it. I think a lot of people find themselves playing the same handful of killers anyway, so most of the new content just kind of gets, you know, sidelined, and nobody even goes in place anymore. And I feel like, you know, the Dead by Daylight experience is really reduced to the same thing now, more so because I feel like they just dropped the ball a lot of the times with some of the events, Rift Passes, and just content. I mean, we already know about the streak of bad chapters that people didn't like, which was like Skull Merchant, Knights, etc. But that being said, that's gonna be it for my rant, my tangent. Thank you for listening. If you are here to listen, and if you disagree with me, that's also okay too. But that being said, that's gonna be it for me. My name is Matt. I'll talk to you guys all later. Peace out.